There are stories that feel small at first, a screenshot, a whisper in a DM, a lawsuit filed in a quiet county court, and then like a dropped glass in a cathedral, the sound expands. What we're watching now around Hermès is exactly that kind of echo, an alleged boutique insider scheme that exposes not just one bad actor, but an entire architecture of desire, privilege, and trust that luxury depends on. This is not gossip, this is about how value is manufactured, materially and psychologically, and what happens when the machinery breaks. Today we will walk through what reportedly happened, why a single employee's actions can ripple so far, what systems luxury houses put in place to prevent this, and most importantly, what it reveals about who we are when we chase rarity and the idea of exclusivity. The story in brief. Plaintiffs allege that an assistant manager at a Hermès boutique offered clients access to a so-called employees-only portal, taking private payments for discounted bags and, in some claims, delivering products outside official channels. Some buyers say they paid tens of thousands for a perceived shortcut and later discovered the sale was not legitimate or the goods lacked proper provenance. A lawsuit has been filed and the allegations remain, by legal definition, allegations. But the damage is already real. Collectors report feeling betrayed, boutiques feel exposed, and a house that trades on faith in provenance now faces a crisis of confidence. Why does this land like a thunderclap? Because Hermès is not any fashion label. It trades in provenance, in craft, in a carefully choreographed scarcity. A Birkin is not merely leather and hardware, it is a contract between brand and buyer, mediated by boutiques, limited production rhythms, wait lists, clienteling notes, and receipts that prove where a piece came from. When that chain frays, the product stops being a pure object and becomes instead a question. Let's begin with the systems that make insider schemes possible. Luxury houses like Hermès operate with a paradox. They must be both hyper-controlled and intensely human. On the one hand, there are rigid protocols, allocation rules, documentation, internal discount policies, and tight stock controls. On the other hand, the business runs on relationships, trusted clients, loyal boutique teams, private appointments, favored collectors who expect discretion. That relational work is what creates value. It is also what creates points of leverage. If an employee exploits that trust, offering special access or asking for payment off the books, they weaponize the very intimacy that luxury depends on. From a governance perspective, the question is always, did the employee act completely outside the scope of employment, or was there a culture that made such behavior feasible? Many observers say Hermès' rules are famously strict. Long-time employees will tell you boutique SOPs leave little room for improvisation. Others point to structural pressures, sales targets, client retention, the glamour economy where boutique staff sometimes get swept into the same urgency as clients. The law will pass scope and negligence. The court will ask whether Hermès knew, should have known, or failed to supervise. But the court's calculus matters less to a buyer who believes they've been cheated. Why are Birkin and Kelly particularly vulnerable? 2 reasons. First, scarcity economics. These bags are intentionally limited. A functioning secondary market exists because supply is constrained. When scarcity is a business model, a way in becomes immensely valuable. Second, social proof. Ownership of a Birkin signals a status script, not just wealth, but access, connections, belonging. That script creates extraordinary pressure on collectors and aspirants, sometimes to the point where the fear of missing out outweighs due diligence. That fear is exactly what makes scams work. Which leads us to psychology. What compels a client to pay in the shadows? In luxury, there is always an element of ritual. A boutique appointment, a handwritten note, the thrill of finally being offered a bag. All of this is intoxicating. Add to that scarcity and social proof, and you have a perfect storm for irrational decisions. When an employee says, "I can get you one if you act now," they are not just selling leather, they are selling belonging. The transactional becomes emotional. Buyers who later feel duped will admit, with shame or anger, that they wanted the identity the bag promised more than clarity on the purchase path. We must also take a clear look at the victims and the criticisms. Some voices online are unsympathetic. You were desperate, you took the risk. Others argue the brand must accept accountability for creating a market of desperation in the first place. Both instincts are understandable. Consumers do carry responsibility for due diligence. A legitimate Hermès purchase includes a boutique receipt and clear provenance. But brands also cultivate demand by design. Long wait lists, opaque allocation systems, and the mystique of special client lists create a fertile ground for shortcuts. So if a house says we cannot control every employee, that is legally neat. But if the house also built scarcity and mystique as strategy, is there shared responsibility? That is the moral question, not just the legal one. What about authenticity and resale? When a rumor or a lawsuit circles, the resale market flinches. Provenance is currency. Receipts and original purchase channels matter. If bags are sold through unofficial channels, and especially if counterfeit pieces enter the chain, resale prices can wobble. Collectors care not only about beauty, but about traceability. A market built on provenance cannot survive long when provenance is uncertain. That is why the stakes are so high. It's not just one fraudulent sale, it's the erosion of trust that underpins the whole ecosystem. On the workers' side, the debate gets thorny. Some posts we've seen say, after hours, an employee is not in scope. Don't blame the employer. Others argue that failure to supervise employees creates risk. We have former staff saying boutiques were wonderful once, and others saying management was corrupt. Both can be true. Boutiques are human places with hierarchies and cultural frictions. This story will almost certainly open conversations inside luxury houses about training, auditing, incentive design, and whistleblower protections. It should. When trust is the product, governance is the product too. What about the clients who followed the rules, the ones on wait lists, the ones who endured years for a legitimately purchased piece? They feel cheated twice. First, by seeing others get shortcuts, and second, by the potential devaluation of their carefully acquired objects. That's why boutique transparency matters. Houses must balance clienteling, the personal art of cultivating relationships, with systems that are auditable and fair. If a brand cannot guarantee fairness, it risks alienating its most loyal customers. What are the broader cultural implications? We live in a moment when luxury is being democratized and weaponized at once. Social media amplifies scarcity-driven desire, while resellers and influencers create parallel economies. At the same time, consumers are increasingly savvy. They inspect stitching, check receipts, and call boutiques. Public scandals accelerate institutional change, auditing, buyer education, perhaps a rethinking of how access is granted. But scandals also fuel cynicism. If consumers begin to think all exclusive access can be bought secretly, the fantasy central to ultra-luxury erodes. So what does this mean for the future? Expect 3 immediate shifts. 1. Increased scrutiny and audits inside boutiques. Brands will tighten controls to protect the architecture of scarcity. 2. Better buyer education. How to verify provenance, how boutiques allocate stock, why receipts matter. 3. A reputational cost for any house that appears to let private markets flourish under its roof. Long-term, brands that rebuild trust with clear, humane, and fair practices will survive. Those that rely solely on mystique without accountability risk losing the very thing that made them desirable. Before we close, a truth. This is complicated and emotional because objects matter. A handbag becomes a ledger of memory, privilege, and identity. When that ledger is violated, people are not only out of money, they are out of a story they wanted to be a part of. Empathy for victims matters. Clear thinking about systemic fixes matters too. This scandal will likely be litigated and then digested by culture. Our job as watchers, collectors, and participants is to demand both accountability and compassion. Scarcity should not be an invitation for harm. Trust should not be a risk. And luxury, if it is to survive in the age of transparency, must learn to be as honorable in its back office as it is seductive on its runway. If you bought a Birkin through official channels, hold your documents close and ask questions when offers feel rushed or secretive. If you work in a boutique, remember the power you hold and the duty it brings. If you love brands like Hermès, demand the integrity that justifies their price. We'll keep following this story, and when more facts appear, we will report with the same care and seriousness. For now, protect provenance, question shortcuts, and remember why authenticity matters. If you found this clear and useful, subscribe. We don't chase drama for clicks. We chase the truth that helps you buy better. think deeper, and love fashion more intelligently.